news just broke today that you have a special team looking into why the FBI opened an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 elections. I wonder if you can share with this committee who's on that team, why you felt a need to form that kind of a team, and what you intend to be the scope of their investigation.
Yeah, as I said in my confirmation hearing, I am going to be reviewing both the genesis and the conduct of intelligence activities directed at the Trump campaign during 2016. A lot of this has already been investigated, and a substantial portion of it has been investigated and is being investigated by the Office of Inspector General at the Department. But one of the things I want to do is pull together all the information from the various investigations that have gone on, including on the Hill and in the Department, and see if there are any remaining questions to be addressed.
And can you share with us why you feel a need to do that?
Well, for the same reason we're worried about foreign influence in elections. We want to make sure that during an election, I think spying on a political campaign is a big deal. It's a big deal. Generation I grew up in, which was the Vietnam War period, people were all concerned about spying on anti-war people and so forth by the government. And there were a lot of rules put in place to make sure that there's an adequate basis before our law enforcement agencies get involved in political surveillance. I'm not suggesting that those rules were violated, but I think it's important to look at that. And I'm not talking about the FBI necessarily, but intelligence agencies more broadly.
So you're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't, I guess you could, I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well, let me...
But the question is whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I need to explore that. I think it's my obligation. Congress is usually very concerned about intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies staying in their proper lane, and I want to make sure that happened. We have a lot of rules about that. And I want to say that I've said I'm reviewing this. I haven't set up a team yet, but I have in mind having some colleagues help me pull all this information together and let me know whether there's some areas that should be looked at. And I also want to make clear this is not launching an investigation of the FBI. Frankly, to the extent there were any issues at the FBI, I do not view it as a problem that's endemic to the FBI. I think there was probably a failure among a group of leaders there at the upper echelon, and so I don't like to hear attacks about the FBI because I think the FBI is an outstanding organization, and I think Chris Wray is a great partner for me. I'm very pleased that he's there as the director, and if it becomes necessary to look over some former officials' activities, I expect that I'll be relying heavily on Chris and work closely with him in looking at that information. But that's what I'm doing. I feel I have an obligation to make sure that government power is not abused. I mean, I think that's one of the principal roles of the Attorney General.
I certainly agree. I think we all have an obligation to ensure that government power is not abused. The question I have is what happens when the executive is potentially playing that role, and that's where it doesn't seem to me there has been adequate oversight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm happy to discuss the process.
I very much look forward to that. Yeah. My last question, given your unsolicited June 8th letter to the Justice Department regarding obstruction of justice, did you ever consider recusing yourself from making a conclusion about whether a charge of obstruction of justice should have been made?
Well, I consulted with the career ethics officials at the department,
And they concluded that your memo on that topic did not require your recusal.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Chairman Graham, the Attorney General has been very faithful to his insistence that he not disclose anything of significance until he's in front of your committee.
Great, but you cannot possibly be surprised that President Trump would claim exoneration without having read anything. So, anyway, I hate to talk about appropriations in Appropriations Committee, but I will.
We will welcome that.
Okay, if sequestration goes back into effect and is due to do that, how would it affect the FBI and your ability to defend the nation?
Could I turn that over to my trusty sidekick here?
Yeah. Or did you pick a winning lottery ticket to be here with him?
Throw the hard ones there.
Yeah.
I can tell you the last time we had full sequestration in 2013, the department had $1.3 billion at risk. People at the FBI, the rest of our law enforcement agencies, the Bureau of Prisons, all those agencies had their funding impacted, their staffing impacted. People were at risk for furlough. We had to move several $100 million from other accounts into the department into our S&E accounts to keep our people working. Sequestration had a tremendous, tremendous impact on the Department of Justice, took tremendous work to avoid the detrimental effects of sequestration.
Do you believe it would, if we go back down that road, it would make us less safe?
I believe it would curtail the safety operations of the Department of Justice and its national security operations.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Attorney General, I'm sure you share that assessment.
Yes.
Okay, as to what you're going to do on May the 1st, we'll save that mostly for May 1st. But I am intrigued by the idea of this working group or some group looking at the other side of the ledger. Do you agree with me that every American should be concerned as to whether or not a warrant was obtained against an American citizen with unverified information?
Absolutely. I think, you know, the Fourth Amendment is one of our most cherished civil liberties.
So you think that's an appropriate thing to look at, and you will look at it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you share my concern that if you're going to open up a counterintelligence investigation against a presidential candidate, that you have to have a very good reason?
Yes, absolutely.
And a counterintelligence investigation is designed to protect the target of foreign influence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It's not a prosecutorial function, is it?
No, unless espionage or some violation of espionage laws develops.
So would it be odd that the candidate was never really briefed by the Department of Justice that your campaign may be targeted by a foreign entity?
That is one of the questions I have. I feel normally the campaign would have been advised of this.
Okay. And can you think of a good reason right now why they wouldn't have been?
I'm interested in getting that answer. They had two former U.S. attorneys, in Chris Christie and Rudy Giuliani, involved in the campaign, and I don't understand why the campaign was not advised.
Apparently, when Senator Feinstein had a person on her staff that was supposedly connected to the Chinese government, she was briefed. Is that the normal way you do things with a counterintelligence investigation?
I think...
Well, she was briefed about a staff member that they thought might be connected to the Chinese government, and she took action and fired the guy. Is that sort of what you're supposed to be doing?
That's what I would, if I were Attorney General and that situation came up, I would say, yes, brief the target of the foreign espionage activity.
Okay. So you're pledging to this committee, and I guess to the country as a whole, is to find out what happened with the warrant application, find out about the counterintelligence investigation, to make sure that the law was followed, and if there was any abuse of the law, to report to the Congress and the public. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. I just, want to satisfy myself that there were no abuse of law enforcement or intelligence powers.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that. When it comes to Mr. Mueller, are you talking to him about the 6E material?
I haven't personally talked to him about the 6E, but his people are working on the 6E material.
So there's a collaboration between your people and Mueller people about what to take out and what to leave in on the grand jury side?
Yes, as it was described to me, people are sitting at the same table.
Right. When it comes to ongoing criminal investigations, you're making sure that prosecutors they have a say about what's released because it may jeopardize their cases.
That's right, the people involved in those cases.
And when it comes to classified information, you're talking to the intelligence community to make
Yes.
sure they're okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.